Good morning. I hereby call to order this third meeting of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission for the year 2026. Welcome everyone joining us in the room today, as well as those joining us live stream. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. At today's meeting, which is open to the public, the Commission will act on various matters. Since adequate forms have been made available for public participation in cases before the Commission, there's no opportunity for the public to address the Commission at this public meeting. The public meeting motions, statements, and video will be available on the Commission's website later today. The first matter on this morning's agenda is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 15th, 2026. I would like to recognize Vice Chair Barrow as the editor of the minutes. Vice Chair Barrow.
Thanks, Chairman. I have reviewed the minutes from January 15, 26. I move that they be approved as submitted.
Heard the motion by Vice Chair Barrow. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zerfas. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The matter is approved by a vote of 5-0. Let's begin on page 1 of today's agenda and matters presented by Director Yoder and the Bureau of Audits. I move that the Commission adopt an omnibus motion, both items on page 1, beginning with a recommendation to release the audit report on Duquesne Light Company's universal service charge to the public, and ending the omnibus with the recommendation to release the audit report on Reimer Natural Gas LLC's gas cost rate to the public. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and matters are approved by a vote of 5-0. Turning to page 2 of today's agenda, and matters presented by Director Hafner, the Office of Special Assistance. I move that the Commission adopt the proposed opinion and order in the formal complaint of the Bureau of Investigation Enforcement versus Quentin Kurt West, trading as Checker Premium Rideshare. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zerfas. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and matters approved by a vote of 5-0. Continuing on page 2 of today's agenda, I move that the Commission adopt the proposed opinion and order in the tariff supplements of the York Water Company. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion?
Chairman, I have a motion.
Commissioner Yanora.
I ask that my motion be entered in the record as if I read it in its entirety. Before the Commission are the exceptions of York Water Company Water Division and Wastewater Division in its base rate case. In the recommended decision, the ALJs recommend that at time of the next rate base case, York Water should file an updated customer class demand study. The Commission should not order a utility to move forward with a demand study without knowing the cost. As the costs are unknown, I find it prudent that York Water to study the feasibility and cost of customer class demand study within 90 days of our final order of this matter. At that time, if York Water determines that the cost of the study warrants deferred accounting treatment, York Water may file a petition requesting that treatment. Therefore, I move that 1, the exception of York Water Company Water Division and the York Water Company Wastewater Division are granted in part and denied in part, consistent with this motion. 2, that the recommended decision is adopted in part and modified in part, consistent with this motion. And 3, the Office of Special Assistance prepare an opinion and order based on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Yanora. We've heard the motion by Commissioner Yanora. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zerfas. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I'm on cold medicine. Sorry.
Okay.
No.
Those opposed, no.
No.
The motion passes by a vote of 4-1, noting the dissent of Vice Chair Barrow. On the matter as amended by the motion, are there any comments?
Chairman, I do have a statement.
Vice Chair Barrow.
Thank you. It's important to note that the current settlement before us, that with this current settlement, York's last 3 rate cases have all been settlements. I acknowledge that by the end of the fully projected future test year, the company would have spent over $86 million for infrastructure work, for water operations, and over $13 million for the wastewater infrastructure repair work. I commend them for making the necessary investments in their system. That being said, I do urge the company to fully litigate their next base rate filing. This settlement is a black box settlement. That means it does not reflect a specific resolution of every element of the agreed upon revenue increase and revenue requirement, including any specific rate of return, but instead represents the joint petitioners' agreed upon final revenue increase amount based on their respective individual analyses of the various revenue and expense items. It also bears repeating that York Water's last customer demand study was in 1976 and 1977. A demand study shows how each class of customers utilizes the facilities of the utility so that costs can be allocated accurately to each customer class. A demand study is an intrinsic part of a cost of service study, and a cost of service study is foundational to setting just and reasonable utility rates. The need for an updated demand study was raised in 1992, was raised again in 2006. Subsequent settlements, which were approved by the commission, allowed the issue to be put off time and time again. So it's now been 50 years since customer demand was reviewed. South Central PA's population and industry have changed over the decades. Therefore, it is very unlikely that customer class demand in York Water service territory has stayed static. So if this is true, some customers may be overpaying and some customers may be underpaying rates. The OSBA and the OCA argued for, and the ALJs agreed that by the next rate case filing, York Water should file a modern customer class demand study. In its exceptions, York Water argued that due to the likely extraordinary cost of such a study for a company its size, it needs until 2029. It needs 3 more years to do such a study. And they also asked that the study cost be designated as a regulatory asset. I agree with the ALJ's determination that the study must be completed by the next rate filing. And I'm also not convinced that a foundational input upon which a utility's claims for rates is based should be accorded deferred accounting treatment, especially when the company has had this many years to arrange a study. Moreover, I find it prudent to emphasize that recovery of the study costs cannot be determined outside of the next rate case. I caution all involved that determining how much of the expense for the demand study should be recovered in rates should be litigated holistically to avoid single-issue rate making. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Barrow. Any further comments? I do have a statement in this matter. I ask my statement be entered into record as though I read it in its entirety. Today, I am voting to approve the joint petition for approval of a partial settlement entered in York Water's base rate case. The partial settlement is a black box settlement, which means that while the parties agree that the utility has supported an identified revenue requirement, they were unable to reach an agreement on each and every element of the revenue requirement calculation. In this case, OCA, OSBA, I&E, and York Water expressly agreed that York Water produced substantial evidence to support an annual increase in water rates of $16 million and an annual increase in wastewater rates of $2.85 million. At the outset, I acknowledge that black box settlements have become a topic of debate. During his budget address, Governor Josh Shapiro called upon the 4 largest electric utility companies in Pennsylvania to end black box settlements. Governor Shapiro's comments regarding black box settlements were made in context of reining in utility costs. I acknowledge the governor's concerns, as I recently expressed my own concerns regarding customer affordability when I voted to substantially reduce Columbia Gas of Pennsylvania's requested rate increase. My vote to approve the settlement in this case should not be viewed as dismissing any concerns regarding black box settlements or rate accountability. On the contrary, I am committed to working here within the Commission as well as externally with advocates, the governor, the General Assembly, and utilities to reform rate case processes as warranted, increase accountability, and to ensure that jurisdictional customers are not priced out of access to essential utility services. I also remain committed to scrutinizing each utility's request to increase rates, as I have done in this case with respect to York Water's request. My vote to approve the partial settlement is based upon a comprehensive review of the evidentiary record created in this case. I have also considered that while the parties actively litigated this case and opposed aspects of York Water's rate request for varying reasons, with the limited exception of the litigated water allocation issue, each of these parties independently determined to the end their litigation in favor of the terms contained in the settlement. As part of the settlement package, each party submitted a statement in support to meet its burden of proving that the terms and conditions of the settlement are in the public interest. By way of example, York Water identified the company's need to invest in infrastructure replacements, improvements, and additions was a major driver of the rate increase, citing a projected spend of $86.3 million in replacements, improvements, and additions to the company's water facilities, and over $13 million for its wastewater facilities through the first 2 months of 2027. While York Water agreed to settle its rate case for less revenue than requested, it did so in a manner that would still enable the company to provide safe and reliable service to its customers while balancing their need for reasonable rates. OCA submitted that the partial settlement's revenue increase, which is $4.8 million less than York Water's total combined request, represents a result that would be within the range of likely outcomes if the case was fully litigated. Also, the OCA notes that the settlement includes important consumer protections, such as doubling the funding level from $40,000 to $80,000 for the company's low-income bill discount program. OSBA stressed that the partial settlement's reduction of York Water's overall revenue increase closely aligned to the recommendation that OSBA submitted in testimony representing a just and reasonable result. And I&E explained that it only agreed to the $18.85 million partial settlement after conducting an extensive investigation of York Water's filing and determining an amount of the revenue that the company needs to provide safe, effective, and reliable service to its customers. In totality, after careful consideration of the full record in this case and the partial settlement package, I agree with the administrative law judges that the active parties met their burden of proving that the terms are reasonable, supported by substantial evidence, and in the public interest by balancing the interests of York Water and its customers. Any further comments? Hearing none, is there any objection to taking the previous roll call? Hearing none, the matter passes as amended by the motion by a vote of 4-1, noting the dissent of Vice Chair Barrow. Turning to page 3 of today's agenda, I move that the Commission adopt a proposed opinion in order in the formal complaint of Pamela Zala versus the York Water Company. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion?
Chairman, I do have a joint motion with Commissioner Yanora.
Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you. I'd ask that our joint statement, or excuse me, our joint motion be entered into the record as I read it in its entirety. Before the Commission for consideration are the exceptions filed by the York Water Company to the initial decision issued in this matter. The initial decision sustains the formal complaint against York Water, alleging the first 3 water bills the complainant received were too high. The initial decision found that the complainant satisfied her burden of proving that she was overbilled by York Water. The initial decision concluded that the complainant presented a prima facie case of overbilling for 3 billing periods in 2024, and the York Water Company did not present evidence to sufficiently rebut the prima facie case. In its exception number 1, York Water argues that the initial decision erroneously concluded that the company overbilled the complainant for water usage during the disputed billing periods. Even if the complainant established a prima facie case for overbilling on her first 3 bills from York Water, we believe that York Water sufficiently rebutted the complainant's prima facie case. As York Water states in its exception number 1, the meter installed at the property in question was brand new, and there was no evidence to suggest the meter is faulty or inaccurate. In addition, we agree with York Water that to accept that the meter recording usage inaccurately, the meter would have had to have been faulty for the disputed periods, but somehow corrected itself to start recording usage accurately for all subsequent billing periods. We believe it is unlikely that the meter corrected itself. Further, we agree with York Water that it's reasonable to conclude the builder is using water for irrigation purposes, the complainant's lawn before and after the account was placed in her name, which contributed to higher water usage. As such, we believe that exception 1 should be granted and the complaint should be dismissed entirely for failure to meet the burden of proof. Therefore, we move that exception number 1 of the York Water Company to the initial decision issued on September 23, 2025 in this matter be granted, consistent with the joint motion. Second, that the initial decision issued on September 23, 2025 in this matter is reversed, consistent with this motion. 3, that the formal complaint of Pamela Zelaya is dismissed, consistent with this joint motion, and that 4, the Office of Special Assistants prepare an opinion and order consistent with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zerfas. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is approved by a vote of 5-0. On the matter as amended by the motion, is there any objection to taking the previous roll call? Hearing none, the matter is passed as amended by the motion by a vote of 5-0. Continuing on page 3 of today's agenda, I move that the Commission adopt an omnibus motion. The second item on page 3, beginning with a proposed opinion and order and a tariff supplement of Columbia Gas of Pennsylvania Incorporated, and continuing the omnibus to include both items on page 4, ending with the proposed opinion and order in the formal complaint of Consuelo Suarez versus the Philadelphia Gas Works. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zerfas. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and matters are approved by a vote of 5-0. Turning to page 5 of today's agenda, I move that the Commission adopt the proposed opinion and order in the tariff supplements of the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zerfas. Any discussion? I do have a statement in this case. I ask my statement be entered into the record as though I read it in its entirety. Before the Commission is the rate case filed by Pittsburgh Water, along with the recommended decision of Administrative Law Judges Emily I. DeVoe and Ann Quimby, and the exceptions thereto. Pittsburgh Water sought an overall increase of $84.3 million spread over 2 years amongst its water, wastewater, and stormwater operations. Also before the Commission is a joint petition for settlement submitted by the OCA, OSBA, I&E, our water table, and Pittsburgh Water. The joint settlement is a black box settlement, which means that while the parties agreed that the utility has supported an identified revenue requirement, they were unable to agree on each and every element of the revenue requirement calculation. Earlier at this meeting, I submitted a statement on York Water's rate proceeding, highlighting the recent concerns raised by black box settlements and my commitment to work here at the Commission with advocates, the Governor, the General Assembly to ensure customers are not priced out of access to utility services. I remain committed to scrutinizing each utility's request for increased rates, as I've done in this case with respect to Pittsburgh Water's request. As the case in York Water, my vote to approve the settlement is based upon a comprehensive review of the evidentiary record. The settlement asserts that all the terms and provisions taken together demonstrate how, as a package, the settlement has achieved a reasonable balance of many different and sometimes conflicting issues and is clearly in the public interest. I concur. The settlement includes an increase of revenues of $25 million. This reasonably compares to the revenue requirement positions of $22.9 million of the Bureau of Investigation and Enforcement and $18 million of the Office of Consumer Advocate. The settlement includes numerous other terms that may not have been agreed upon except for good faith negotiations of all parties seeking to establish an outcome in the public interest. These include, but are not limited to, withdrawal of Pittsburgh Water's proposal to increase the DISC cap from 5% to 7.5%, a commitment to call center standards including an average answer time of 1 minute and an abandonment rate of 3% or less. Pittsburgh Water will continue offering 6-month payment arrangements to small business customers while permitting extension of up to 24 months. The utility will offer new leak credit and electronic billing credit program. New enrollees in the Pittsburgh Water's bill discount program with arrears will be automatically enrolled in their arrearage forgiveness program. Pittsburgh Water will expand the benefits offered through its bill discount program, including increasing the discount from 60% to 70% for customers in the lowest threshold of the federal poverty level. Pittsburgh Water will commence a newly designed arrearage forgiveness plan that reduces arrears by 1/24 for every timely bill paid by enrolled customers. Pittsburgh Water will increase hardship grant eligibility to allow customers to receive grants twice per year, resulting in an annual grant of $450 for water and $450 for wastewater. And Pittsburgh Water will continue to recover costs of its low-income customer assistance program from all customer classes. I thank the settling parties, including Pittsburgh Water, I&E, OCA, OSBA, and our water table, for amicably reaching these terms. As each party states in their statement in support, the terms achieve a result that is in the public interest. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and matters approved by a vote of 5-0. Turning to page 6 of today's agenda, I move that the commission adopt the proposed opinion and order in the formal complaint of Andrew Matthews versus Columbia Gas of Pennsylvania Incorporated. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zerfus. Any discussion?
Chairman, I have a statement.
Vice Chair Barrow.
Thank you. Secretary Helmsher, please enter my statement into the record as if I read it in its entirety. I forgot to say that for York Water, by the way. The initial decision here granted Andrew Matthews formal complaint and awarded a 36-month payment arrangement. In rendering the decision, the ALJ provided a well-written and thorough analysis on Chapter 14, the sunset of Chapter 14, statement of policy, binding norms, and the payment arrangement precedent that existed prior to Chapter 14. I am supportive of the initial decision's analysis on payment arrangements, and I believe that the specific facts in this case warrant utilizing discretion in awarding the 36-month payment arrangement. I believe that the combination of Mr. Matthews' recent additional monthly income, his demonstrated plan to address his debts, coupled with the extended payment time, would have allowed Mr. Matthews to keep his utility service and prevent the outstanding balance from going to collections and burdening other ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Barrow. Any further comments? I do have a few comments in this case. I thank Vice Chair Barrow for her thoughts on this matter. And you know, I will say that about a year ago, we did pass a policy statement, and at that time, we acknowledged that it did not carry rule of law. We have seen many parties to these cases following the policy statement that we set out, even though they didn't have to do it. And that includes utilities, that includes advocates, and many, many of our judges. And while I do respect the independence of our ALJ to go beyond the limits of that policy statement, it's certainly permissible. I would be remiss to still encourage folks to follow that policy statement. You know, this commission passed that policy statement by a unanimous vote. And again, we would hope to continue to follow that while it's still in place. That being said, I think we are going to have a pathway one way or the other very shortly. Later in this agenda, we will be voting on a rulemaking. If we have the votes to pass that rulemaking, we will be proceeding down a path of formalizing a rulemaking. And if we don't have the votes to pass that rulemaking, then we probably will be rescinding that policy statement. And, the General Assembly, it now has had, 14 months to reenact that provision. They've chosen not to. If the commission decides not to pursue a path of rulemaking, then we will likely remove that policy statement and just handle these on a case-by-case basis because there's no guidance by the General Assembly or the commission as a whole. So I thank the Vice Chair for her comments, and I just thought it would be a good time to point some of these things out. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it, and matters approved by a vote of 4-1, noting the dissent of Vice Chair Barrow. Turning to page 7 of today's agenda, and matters presented by Director Diskin and the Bureau of Technical Utility Services. I move that the Commission adopt an omnibus motion, both items on page 7, beginning with the proposed order in the application of American Broadband and Telecommunications Company, and continuing the omnibus to include both items on page 8, and both items on page 9, ending the omnibus with the proposed order regarding the letter of notification filed by PPL Electric Utilities Corporation. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and matters approved by a vote of 5-0. Turning to page 10 of today's agenda, it should be noted that the matter at the top of page 10, the letter of notification filed by PECO Energy Company Electric, has been postponed to the public meeting of March 12, 2026. Continuing on page 10, I move that the Commission adopt in an omnibus motion the proposed order regarding the application of U.S. Power Supply, LLC, and continue the omnibus to include both items on page 11, all 3 items on page 12, and the top item on page 13, ending the omnibus with the proposed order regarding the joint letter of notification filed by Keystone Appalachian Transmission Company and First Energy Pennsylvania Electric Company. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and matters approved by a vote of 5-0. Continuing on page 13, I move that the Commission adopt the proposed order in the tariff supplement of National Fuel Gas Distribution Company. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zerfus. Any discussion?
Chairman, I have a statement.
Vice Chair Barrow.
Thank you. Please enter my statement into the record as if read in its entirety. I vote to approve the suspension and investigation of NFG's rate filing, but I would like to take the opportunity to urge the parties to take a critical look at the company's requested rate of return and return on equity, as well as the capital structure, common equity ratio and debt capital, to ensure reasonableness. Deviations in each of these items translate into millions of dollars charged to customers of all rate classes. Too often, the relationship between debt and ROE to cost of debt and capital is asserted as a general matter from basic economic principle alone. But those relationships are not often established empirically. That empirical relationship must periodically be reestablished. Therefore, I believe a careful and detailed review of NFG's claimed capital structure and ROE is warranted. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Barrow. Any further comments? I do have a statement in this matter. I ask my statement be entered into the record as though I read it in its entirety. Before the Commission is the rate case filed on January 28, 2026 by National Fuel Gas Distribution Corporation, Incorporated, or NFG. NFG seeks to increase overall annual revenues by $19.7 million, or 7.4%. This proposal would result in a monthly bill increase from $83.49 to $88.44, which would be a 5.9% increase for customers using 80 CCF per month. On February 4th, 2026, the Office of Consumer Advocate filed a formal complaint. Various other oppositions were also filed at the instant docket. Consequently, the Commission now considers this action to suspend the tariff for further investigation and analysis and send it to the Commission's Office of Administrative Law Judge for final disposition by the Commission on or before October 29th, 2026. As part of this rate filing, NFG was required to provide notice of proposed rate changes to its customers, identifying the total average bill for residential customers, commercial customers, and industrial customers that would result if the company's full rate request was approved. In the event that parties in this case reach a revenue settlement, I am specifically requesting that the following settlement rate impact information be provided for the Commission's review. 1, any settlement should identify the total average bill for NFG's residential, commercial, and industrial customers. 2, any settlement should identify the exact percentage of rate increase that NFG's residential, commercial, and industrial customers will experience under the settlement rates compared to existing rates. And 3, the recommended decision should include the settlement rate impact information identified above. Thank you. Any further comments? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the matter is approved by a vote of 5-0. Turning to page 14, I move that the Commission adopt the proposed order in the security certificate filing of York Water Company, Water. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zerfus. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the matter is approved by a vote of 5-0. Continuing on page 14 of today's agenda, I move that the Commission adopt a proposed order in the tariff supplement of UGI Utilities Incorporated Gas Division. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion?
Chairman, I have a statement.
Vice Chair Barrow.
Please enter my statement into the record as if read in its entirety. I will not read it. It's the exact same statement that I made in NFG's case. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Barrow. Any further comments? I also have a statement in this case. I will submit it for the record. And again, it's asking the same thing, the terms of the settlement and the impacts of customers that would be reached by that settlement. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, the matter is approved by a vote of 5-0. Turning to page 15 of today's agenda, and matters presented by Chief Counsel Screven and the Law Bureau. I move that the Commission adopt an omnibus motion, both items on page 15, beginning with the proposed order regarding an appointment to the Telecommunications Relay Advisory Board, ending with the appointment to the Relay Advisory Board. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. And the motions and the matters passed by a vote of 5-0. Continuing on page 16 of today's agenda, I move that the Commission adopt in an omnibus motion both items on page 16, ending with the delinquent assessments of motor carriers. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zerfus. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the matter is approved by a vote of 5-0. Turning to page 17 of today's agenda, I move the Commission adopt the proposed order in the rulemaking to further amend the provisions of 52 PA Code, Chapter 56. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion?
Chairman, I have a statement.
Vice Chair Barrow.
Thank you. Please enter my statement into the record as though read in its entirety. So at the November 25 public meeting, I stated that since Chapter 14 sunset at the end of 2024, I agreed that it was time to determine the next steps on utility and customer protections. I fully supported the Commission taking the initiative to provide confidence and expectations for customers and utilities when facing uncertain times, terminations, past due balances. However, I do not believe that the expired Chapter 14 provisions should be the ultimate goal for this rulemaking. The Commission's mission is to balance the needs of consumers and utilities, ensure safe and reliable utility service at reasonable rates, and protect the public interest. Ignoring lessons learned in the past 10, past 20 years, Chapter 14 has been in place, and ignoring the current landscape of affordability and vulnerability faced by Pennsylvania customers today does not achieve that mission. Simply copying and pasting the prior Chapter 14 into our regs is not in the public interest, and it's frankly a disservice. I would have appreciated seeking comment on and potentially incorporating into Chapter 56 the following topics. And I say potentially, I actually want comment to review on these things. And I'll list them. Adjusting payment arrangement lengths and levels, adding an increased change in income as a justification for a new payment arrangement, extending payment arrangements to small businesses, creating a term length for restarting the clock for defaulted and fulfilled payment arrangements, expanding the group of people who can sign a medical certificate, establishing a summer termination prohibition procedure based upon heat advisories, updating or creating provisions reconciling termination notices or lack thereof, and LIHEAP eligibility for crisis grants, updating provisions relating to personal contact prior to termination or other interruption or disruption of service, and increasing minimum federal poverty levels for the waiver of late payments, prohibiting reconnection fees, and prohibiting in-person meter reading fees. I'm not saying I'm sold on all those things, but it makes sense for us to hear them out. The Commission has had 20 years to evaluate what works and what doesn't work for customers with regard to affordability, and also what works and what doesn't work for utilities with regards to collections under Chapter 14. This is the opportunity to utilize the knowledge gained over those 2 decades. I'm really disappointed that the Commission is wasting this opportunity to provide meaningful guidance in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Barry. Any further comments?
Chairman, I do have some verbal remarks.
Mr. Coleman.
Thank you. As you've heard before us this morning is the notice of proposed rulemaking order. It is amending the provisions of Chapter 52, Code 56. I want to, first of all, thank the staff of the Law Bureau and the Bureau of Consumer Services. This was a project that, at its onset, we were looking to move expeditiously through this process and get to an end. And this was a tall order for staff, and they did a fantastic job, a very strong product for us to be looking at here this morning. So thank you to the Law Bureau and the Bureau of Consumer Services. Back in November, when we initially took up this matter, this was the C motion that the chairman had offered. It was unanimously supported by the 5 commissioners. And at that time, we were looking at the provisions of Chapter 14 that were in effect prior to sunset, and that the objective here was to include those provisions currently being followed by the Commission and by our policy statement. That was the scope of this project. I believe that today's NOPR is limited in scope to that very stated purpose. I think we're all aware of the stakeholder comments. In fact, I'm not sure if there's anything else that could possibly be said at this particular point in time. that this has been heavily debated, and we have watched very closely those debates at the General Assembly and the recommendations that have been offered for consideration. I'm optimistic that the General Assembly will continue to deliberate on those recommendations in due course. In fact, in the governor's 26-27 budget address, the governor has shared that the 4 major electric distribution companies have agreed to work with the General Assembly to extend and expand Chapter 14 protections for low-income and vulnerable Pennsylvanians. In the meantime, I do not intend to usurp the role of the General Assembly to set policy related to protecting responsible utility customers. When it was in effect, Chapter 14 of the Code provided certainty to utilities, consumers, and affected stakeholders. The Commission's statement of policy has been the extension of that certainty. Today's NOPR reflects the Commission's continued commitment to regulatory certainty. Both the Commission and the utilities have invested significant resources into implementing Chapter 14 as enacted and amended. As we noted in our statement of policy and the Commission's motion, by maintaining the existing regulatory paradigm, we avoid unnecessary expenses and administrative burdens for this Commission and the utilities. We also noted that maintaining the existing regulatory paradigm is in the public interest. To that end, I ask interested stakeholders to be mindful of the limited scope of the rulemaking when commenting on the proposed modification to our existing regulations and the proposed regulations. I highlight the language from today's NOPR that's, quote, "The instant rulemaking is not intended as a general review of Chapter 56 or the Commission's regulations," end quote. I would add that the instant rulemaking is also not intended as a general review of the former Chapter 14. Again, as stated in the NOPR, the Commission's goal is to expeditiously amend Chapter 56 of our regulations to incorporate the provisions of Chapter 14 that were in effect prior to the sunset. My review will be focused on comments as they are narrowly tailored in pursuit of this goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. I would just point out to both members regarding some of the points that the Vice Chair Barrow brought up. I do think that that certainly is within the context of what we're talking about here, some of the points. And so if comments come in, I think that is within the sort of the guardrails of the rulemaking. For Commissioner Coleman, I would point out this is a long process and it's only the starting point. If we do see legislation pass and be enacted, that's obviously, this stops then, and that's the rulemaking then we undertake to put into place the new law. So please be assured of that, as we all know, rulemakings can be a multi-year process, and so we have to start at some point, and I think this is a good starting point. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it, and the matter is approved by a vote of 4-1, noting the dissent of Vice Chair Barrow. Continuing on page 17, I move that the Commission adopt the proposed order regarding the Pennsylvania Accelerated Transmission and Energy Redevelopment Study. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, a couple words, please.
Commissioner Zerfus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this PATER study is going to analyze the interconnection status and existing transmission facilities at or in close proximity to approximately 20 recently retired electric generation facility sites in PA. So preliminary reports will be issued to the public for comments prior to a final report. What I'm hoping is that the final report can be used to help improve resource adequacy and increase generation capability while addressing transmission infrastructure needs here in PA. And I just wanted to make sure that, I thanked Commission staff from the Law Bureau, Bureau of Administration, Bureau of Technical Utility Services, and the Executive Director's Office for working in collaboration with the Governor's Policy Office, DCED, the Department of Environmental Protection's Energy Programs Office, the Consumer Advocate, and the Team PA Foundation to pursue the federal grant to fund this study. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zerfus. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and matters approved by a vote of 5-0. Turning to page 18 of today's agenda, I recognize Commissioner Zerfus for the purposes of her commissioner's motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So our rail safety regulations have not been updated since 2013. That's a long time. So I think it is important for us to take this like kind of, wholesale review of the regulations, see what needs to be updated, modernized, or even streamlined, since a lot has changed since 2013. And, leading up to this motion, a lot of time and work has gone into, the research, right? Trying to figure out, how that landscape has changed since 2013, what our authority is or isn't, best practices, what other states do. And I wanted to make sure I thank Jamie McClintock for her help in the very thorough and dedicated research that she has done leading up to this motion. I also want to, thank my colleagues here, the commissioners, for their indulgence. I had this on the agenda for the public meeting, last public meeting, and I postponed my own motion because I wanted to make sure that I was hitting the right note on the content, but also being, making sure that the logistics were right. I wanted to be sensitive to staff time and agency resources. And I think at this point, I've hit the right note, or at least I hope so anyway, to at least get the process started. Dare I even say, like, we're back on track. See what I did there with the pun? Yeah, you saw that? Okay. Yeah, thank you. And so that being said, please enter this motion into the record as if I read it in its entirety. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I will read most of it, so bear with me, please. On February 3, 2023, a Norfolk Southern freight train carrying hazardous materials derailed near East Palestine, Ohio, approximately 1/4 mile from the Pennsylvania state line in Beaver County. This significant derailment resulted in several rail cars burning for more than 2 days and emergency personnel conducting controlled burns of several cars, which released hydrogen chloride and phosgene into the air. Residents within a 1-mile radius of the accident were evacuated. So as we have marked the 3rd anniversary of the toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Pennsylvania communities continue to live with the risk of hazardous materials moving through population centers, while comprehensive federal rail safety reform remains stalled despite new bipartisan efforts like the Under Pressure Act, which specifically addresses communication failures and incorporates rail safety mandates into the 2026 Surface Transportation Reauthorization. The East Palestine tragedy and other rail-related incidents highlight the need for stronger common-sense safety regulations in Pennsylvania. Even most recently, on January 26, 2026, 13 train cars derailed in Old Forge, Lackawanna County. On September 19, 2025, a Messiah University student tragically lost his life after being struck by a train near campus. In the Lehigh Valley, in March of 2024, a cascade collision of 3 trains spilled diesel and plastic pellets into the Lehigh River, resulting in injury and causing millions of dollars in damages. And in 2017, catastrophe was narrowly avoided when a train derailment in Bedford County forced evacuations after hazardous materials spilled. These Pennsylvania statistics are maintained by the Commission's Bureau of Technical Utility Services Rail Division and show that for accidents involving vehicles and pedestrians at rail crossings, there were 31 fatalities and 25 injuries in 2025, 26 fatalities and 21 injuries in 2024, 24 fatalities and 30 injuries in 2023, and 25 fatalities and 12 injuries in 2024. TusRail also received 61 reports of derailments for the years 2023 to 2025. And with respect to the rail highway bridges under the Commission's jurisdiction, there were approximately 17 emergency repairs, bridge postings, and closures within the past 3 years. So based on the prevalence of rail safety incidents, particularly, the large-scale East Palestine incident, many states, including Pennsylvania, have examined ways to improve railroad safety and prevent similar accidents from occurring in the future. As part of our rail safety review at the Commission, I have closely evaluated under current Pennsylvania law, federal law, and the laws of other states to formulate the basis for amendments to the Commission's railroad regulations. Given that the Commission's railroad regulations have not been amended since 2013, and because there have been many technological and operational advancements in safety for the rail industry, I am motioning to initiate a proposed rulemaking to enhance the Commission's rail safety requirements. In amending the Commission's railroad regulations, the Commission should consider the following. Wayside detector systems. Wayside detector systems are not currently covered in federal regulations. Commission rail safety inspectors have begun discussing these systems with railroad operators. However, the FRA has not yet developed a training program for the inspection of a wayside detector system. In implementing wayside detector requirements in Pennsylvania, the Commission should consider current federal guidelines and safety advisories, as well as Ohio's statutory provisions as a model. Ohio's laws call for ensuring that wayside detectors are properly installed, maintained, repaired, and operational, and that the distance between wayside detector systems is appropriate, and that railroads have defined written standards and training for their employees on responding to wayside detector system defect alerts. The Commission should also consider including enforcement provisions and provisions for certain exemptions, for smaller railroad companies, as well as deviations from the spacing requirement under certain circumstances. Post-inspection compliance reports. Currently, there is no federal requirement for a railroad operator to demonstrate compliance with the applicable law following an inspection identifying noncompliance. This regulatory proposal would require a railroad operator to submit a report to the Commission demonstrating compliance with the applicable federal law following inspections identifying defects and/or recommended violations. Train speed limits. While federal law does have specific speed limits for trains based on the track classification and the train type, many states preserve their authority to regulate train speed, particularly when it is necessary to reduce a local safety hazard and address safety concerns at railroad highway crossings. As other states have done, Pennsylvania should consider a regulation that preserves the Commission's safety authority to reduce local safety hazards and safety issues at railroad highway crossings. Using California and Oregon laws as a guide, the Commission could implement speed restrictions when the restriction is required due to track condition, alignment, curvature of tracks, super elevation, or inadequate right-of-way protection, and higher speeds will have an inverse impact on the health and safety of the public until conditions change. Analysis of routes and emergency response procedures for trains carrying hazardous materials. This proposal would require the railroads to conduct an analysis of routes for high-hazard flammable trains, accounting for proximity to populated areas and safety considerations. It would also require the railroads to provide the Commission with their emergency procedures guidelines for trains carrying hazardous materials. Access to this information is essential if hazardous material derailment occurs in Pennsylvania. Providing information to the Commission on which entity is responsible, either partially or fully, for bridge inspection, maintenance, and repair. This proposed requirement would provide the Commission with information from railroads about which entities are responsible for bridge inspection, maintenance, and repair on the rail highway crossings under our jurisdiction. Ohio has a statutory reporting requirement that mandates railroads to file a complete list of all bridges located entirely or partly within the boundaries of the state for which they are wholly or partially responsible for inspection, maintenance, and repair. The railroads are also required to file and maintain an up-to-date map showing the name, number, or other description and location of each such structure. So in conclusion, these revisions to our rail regulations will ensure that our authority and responsibilities are consistent with technological and operational changes that have reshaped the rail industry since 2013. Consideration of the specific amendments discussed may help reduce the number of major rail accidents, including derailments in Pennsylvania, while enhancing emergency response procedures if they do occur. In addition to these 5 revisions, I ask Commission staff to consider any necessary technical, operational, and procedural updates to the regulations that would improve and promote efficiency, as well as any necessary language updates to address changes in the rail industry or Commission process since the regulations were last updated in 2013. So therefore, I move that the Law Bureau, number 1, that the Law Bureau, in conjunction with the Bureau of Technical Utility Services Rail Division, prepare a proposed rulemaking that includes consideration of these 5 topics and any necessary efficiency and language updates as I addressed in this motion. Number 2, a staff recommendation in the form of a proposed rulemaking order and annex be submitted for commission consideration at a public meeting within 6 months. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Zerfus. We've heard the motion by Commissioner Zerfus. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Barrow. Any discussion?
Chairman,
Vice Chair Barrow.
I do have a statement, and I ask that it be entered into the record as though read. I won't read it, but I do want to thank you, Commissioner Zerfus, for advancing this. I think that public safety in the state will be improved by this initiative. That's it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Barrow. Any further comments? I too thank Commissioner Zerfus for work on this. I know that this was been working on this for a little while, but thank you for taking the lead on this and bringing us to this point today. On the motion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The matter is approved by a vote of 5-0. That concludes all agenda items to be considered today. But before we adjourn, I'd like to recognize Vice Chair Barrow for comments on Black History Month. Vice Chair Barrow.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning again, everyone. So this year marks the 100th anniversary of what began as Negro History Week in 1926. It was founded by Dr. Carter Woodson. What started as a week devoted to recognizing the contributions of Black Americans has evolved into a month-long national commemoration, and more importantly, at least up until now, has been a century-long commitment to ensuring that Black history is studied, preserved, and understood. That history is not separate from American history. Black history is American history in all its complexity, achievement, struggle, and progress. There are moments in our nation when examining the full scope of our past can feel uncomfortable. Some chapters were difficult. Some truths challenge us. But progress has never come from erasing history. It has come from confronting it honestly and learning from it. Of course, for me, Black history is not abstract. It's personal. I wear it. I was a Black child of the 70s and the 80s, and I try to convey to my own children that people in our family who are still alive vividly remember Jim Crow and grew up with stories of what their grandparents and great-grandparents endured as enslaved people. The opportunity that I have to serve in this role, to sit at this dais and help shape policy that affects millions of Pennsylvanians, exists because others insisted on being seen, heard, and counted. They demanded access to institutions that once excluded them, and they pushed this country to expand its founding promises to all of its citizens. Earlier this week, we lost one of the great Americans who, with his Rainbow Coalition, pushed this country to expand its founding promises to all of its citizens. Reverend Jesse Jackson was a contemporary of Dr. King, who, after Dr. King was killed, carried on his civil rights work, albeit in his own unique way. It will tell you something about the need for a leader like Jesse Jackson to rise to prominence during the post-civil rights era, the pre-Barack Obama era, the fact that little 10-year-old me thought that Reverend Jackson's support of inclusivity in all facets of American life, commerce, culture, was radical. And that speaks to the need for the work that he did. So Reverend Jackson followed the path laid by Shirley Chisholm by becoming the second African American to run for president. He ran in 1984 and secured 3.2 million votes. He ran again in 1988 and got 7 million votes. He placed first and second in 16 of the 21 primaries that he took part in and secured 29% of Democratic primary votes. His runs were a proof of concept for the Democratic Party that would later embrace Barack Obama's candidacy. There's so much more that I could share with you about this audacious man, the role he played in securing the release of Navy pilot Robert Goodman from Lebanon in 1984, the fact that he was the first major presidential candidate to include LGBTQ plus rights in his platform. He was brave. He fought the good fight. He was not perfect, but he was a great American. So pivoting back to why we commemorate Black History Month here at the PUC, our mission is to ensure safe, reliable, affordable utility service at just and reasonable rates. Utility service is not a luxury. That service is the foundation of modern life. It enables education, healthcare, business, and opportunity. And historically, access to infrastructure and economic opportunity has not always been equal. As we face the present-day challenges of rising costs, infrastructure modernization, increasing energy demand, and affordability concerns, it is essential that we approach our work with both awareness and intention. Reliability and affordability are critical, but so is ensuring that no community is left behind. These kind of speeches sometimes seem a little esoteric. They're not. There are poor, majority Black communities in parts of this country that are still fighting for basic sewer service. As we honor Black History Month, I hope we recommit ourselves not only to remembering the past, but to building systems that serve Pennsylvanians with dignity and fairness. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Barrow, for those great comments. Now is the time of the public meeting when it falls upon me as the chairman to deliver some tough news. Or to put it another way, it is my honor today to honor a longtime public servant, a senior leader of this commission, and a friend to so many of us gathered here today. We will soon say goodbye to a very valued and longtime PUC employee, Bob Gramola, our Director of Administration and Finance. Bob will retire on March 6th, and this is his last public meeting, at least as a member of our team. Bob is a graduate of Empire State College in Rochester, New York, which is part of the SUNY system there, and he earned a degree there in business management. His professional career spans more than 47 years in the business and regulatory community, overseeing organizations' administrative duties, including human resources, information technologies, facilities, and budget and fiscal operations. Before joining the commission, Bob was employed in management positions in the newspaper industry and managing the day-to-day operations for companies in the insurance and call center industries. Bob originally joined the Commonwealth in 2005, serving as PennDOT's Bureau of Aviation's business manager and then PennDOT's Director of Driver and Vehicle Services. It was in December 2007 when he began at the PUC as a Director of Administration. He has been there ever since. Always ready to step up, he was twice asked by the commissioners to serve as acting executive director when the role was vacant and filled both roles of Director of Administration and Executive Director for the Commission for more than a year. During his time at the PUC, Bob served for 12 years on the NARUC Information Services Subcommittee and was the chairman of the subcommittee for many of those years. Bob implemented the administration of Act 13 of 2012, the natural gas impact fee program, where here at the commission, which has collected and distributed over $2.88 billion to municipalities and entities across the Commonwealth. And Bob collaborated with Executive Director Barrier on developing and rolling out the PUC's current 5-year operational strategic plan. Outside of the office, Bob was a 41-year member of the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletics Association, or PIAA, officiating football and basketball games in the Lancaster-Lebanon League and PIAA District 3, having worked many district and state playoff games, including working 2 PIAA state championship football games over his career. Bob has been married to his high school sweetheart, Karen, for 47 years. Together, they have 3 grown children and 2 granddaughters. After retirement, he says he plans to spend much more time with all of them. He also has future plans to travel and volunteer. Bob, we thank you for your service and wish you all the best in your retirement. And as I said to you in R&R yesterday, you were a great help in us coming, and Katie and I coming here. And I know you had 3 new commissioners, but one was kind of established there, so we were the 2 new ones. But you were acting executive director at the time, and bringing us in. We thank you for that. It was a great transition into the position, so we thank you for that. And Bob does have a few comments he wants to make, but before that, I'm going to present him with his clock. Bob, please come forward.
I promise I'll be brief. Thanks, Chairman, for your kind words. When I was preparing some remarks, I looked back and realized that I worked at the pleasure of 18 different commissioners over my time here. Kind of amazing when you think back, and it was really rewarding. Many of you know I had an entire career in the private sector, but something was tugging at me to get involved in public service. And these last 20 years have been very rewarding. So I want to remind all of us here working in public service what a good thing it is that we do. To the PUC staff, your work touches the lives of all Pennsylvanians, and it is important work that we do. So never forget the value that your hard work means to the citizens of Pennsylvania. I want to take an opportunity just to thank a very few people. Over my career, I've met and worked with a lot of people in my various jobs. Few of them are very special friends. They know who they are, and I thank them greatly for their friendships. Over that same career, I've had a number of bosses. But for almost 10 years, I had a boss who was a great mentor to me. He taught me leadership, hard work, and the importance of having fun in the work that you do. He's still a mentor and a very dear friend. Thanks, Wally. To Rick Harner, for giving me a chance 20 plus years ago and hiring me into public service here at the Commonwealth. To the PUC staff for your dedication to our mission and the work that you do for the people of Pennsylvania. To our bureau directors, both past and present. for your years of camaraderie and teamwork working with you and your respective bureaus. To Executive Director Barrier, Jen, thank you for your leadership. You know, I started managing many, many years ago and adopted a style that worked well for me. Back then, it didn't really have a name, but today they call it servant leadership. And it's a style where you don't really care about yourself or self-promotion. You care about your team, and you work hard to earn their respect and to give them the tools that they need to be successful in their jobs. Jen, you do it so well, and I wish you all the best in everything in your future. To my Bureau of Administration, thank you for the work that you do here for our customers, both the citizens of Pennsylvania and the PUC employees. Admin is the backbone of the PUC. We make sure that we all have the tools, equipment, and information needed to do our work. I am very proud of the Bureau of Administration team and how they do the work with outstanding customer service. To my Bureau of Admin leaders, Terry, Amy, Michael, Nathan, Crystal, and Danielle, I certainly don't tell you enough how much I value you and your work leading the teams, but I really do value you. The chairman and I spoke a few months ago when he gave me my 20-year coin, and we talked about missing the job. And we both agreed it's not the job, it's the people that I'll miss. I've spent 18 years with the Bureau of Admin, and I've shared with the team the joys of marriages and children and grandchildren, and also the sorrow of losing loved ones. They've been my family away from home, and together we built a great team, and I'm very proud of you all. And to the staff of the various utilities I interacted with over the years, you all have had the best interest of your customers in mind, and I thank you for your hard work. And lastly, but certainly not at least, I want to thank my family, my daughter Kelly and son-in-law Justin, my sons Mark and Michael, and my two lovely granddaughters, Emma and Caroline. But most especially, I'd like to thank my wife Karen for her years of encouragement and unwavering support. We've been together since sophomores in high school, and we will celebrate our 48th wedding anniversary in August. I'm being recognized here today, and that's very special and appreciated. But I just want to take a second to talk about my wife. She was a 42-year nurse working in emergency rooms and neonatal intensive care units, touching the lives of hundreds or thousands of families and patients. And somewhere during that time, she decided she was going to beat breast cancer as well. She's a 19-year survivor of breast cancer. She is the rock of our family. And I've been blessed and could not have a better companion and best friend. I turn 69 next week, and I'm at peace that it's the right time to call it a career. I want to spend time in this next chapter of my life slowing down a little bit and enjoying the time with family and friends, doing some volunteer work, and focusing on my health. Thank you all. It's been a great ride.
Bob, thank you again for your longtime service to the Commonwealth and particularly this commission. And we'll keep that conversation to ourselves, which 18 commissioners you like the best. They don't need to know that, okay? And with that, Vice Chair Barrow.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this short, but we have another career transition. Christian McDowell from my office is leaving the PUC, and I just wanted to take a moment to say Thanks for all the hard work over the years, Christian. So I met Christian when I was working for Chairman Dutrell. She pulled him in to help with a project she was working on, and then we kept asking him to help with projects that we were working on because we quickly found out that he is gifted. His brain works like, he's a lawyer, but his brain works like an engineer and also like an economist. And that is an interesting combination. Although I think his personality is probably more of an economist, if that makes any sense. So, but that is the perfect combination for federal energy work and digging into the labyrinth that is PJM. So, of course, by getting to know his work ethic, when I became a commissioner, it was a very easy hire for me, and thankfully he said yes. So just like indulge me in a real quick story. So back in 2024, PJM's quadrennial review was kicking off. And Christian asked me, can I participate in the stakeholder process at PJM? And I was like, yeah, sure, Christian, because like that is where his head is at. And then next it was, can I draft a proposal to redesign the VRR curve and you know, set it against a combustion turbine as the reference resource, tweak the energy and ancillary offsets. Sure, Christian, yes. Can we submit it as Vice Chairman Barrow's proposal? What now? Okay, all right. He worked tirelessly on what would become the PJM Vice Chair Barrow proposal. That proposal received 75% sector-weighted support out of the MRC. And last month, FERC approved the proposal. So Brattle states that this change to the VRR curve will save approximately $10 billion, and that's with a B, dollars for every year that the quad is in place, the 4 years. Christian, thank you for saving the ratepayers of the region and of Pennsylvania that much money. Not many employees can leave a job and say that they had a $40 billion impact in their last role. I know you're going to continue doing stellar work and that you're going to go really, really far. I learned so much from you. Don't think you're getting away from me because I still have a gazillion questions. But I do want to say thank you. Thank you for your service to the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Vice Chair Barrow. And Christian, best of luck to you in your new endeavors. You know, we appreciated your help on all the federal matters and all those wholesale market matters we deal with at OPSI, and we'll certainly miss your face there. And I'm sure we'll see you around, though, in a different role. But best of luck to you in your future endeavors. And if there's no other business to come before the commission, is there any objection to adjourning today's meeting? Hearing none, we are adjourned.